Have you ever heard the story of the woman who used nothing but her wits to leave history's most powerful emperor completely speechless? Her name was Rai Praveen, and the stakes of her performance were the survival of her entire city. By the late 1500s, the Mughal Empire had expanded into an unstoppable military machine. They had swallowed up nearly every independent kingdom in their path, establishing absolute dominance across the continent. At the head of this empire sat Akbar. He was a monarch deeply accustomed to having his commands met with immediate, unquestioning obedience. When Akbar sent an unprompted order demanding that the famous poet and dancer Rai Praveen be brought to his court in Delhi, he wasn't just asking for a performer. He was forcing the kingdom of Orcha into a crisis where their survival rested entirely on the shoulders of a single artist. Looking at this map, you can see the scale of the territorial trap. Orcha is a tiny speck surrounded by a massive imperial footprint. Refusing the emperor's summons would have triggered an immediate, overwhelming invasion. Yet for Rai Praveen, going to Delhi meant entering an environment where she was expected to surrender her personal autonomy and her loyalty to her homeland. She was stepping into the lion's den with no army to protect her, no vast wealth for a bribe, and no title as a shield. Stripped of all traditional forms of leverage, she was forced into a game of asymmetric warfare where her intellect would be her only defense. When she arrived at the Mughal court, she was met with a massive red sandstone fortress designed to make every visitor feel insignificant. She began her defense by disarming the room with a calculated display of courtly precision. Instead of showing resistance, she executed the complex, demanding etiquette of the court flawlessly, bowing perfectly and treating Akbar's authority with absolute reverence. Direct defiance would have instantly triggered the emperor's instinct to crush a rebellion. By adopting a non-threatening posture, she ensured Akbar viewed her as a talented guest rather than a political enemy to be managed. That false sense of security set the stage for her performance. In a crowded, silent hall, she had one chance to speak her mind to a man who held the power of life and death over her people. She moved her attack from her posture to her poetry, setting a logical trap within a single couplet. This flowchart breaks down the logic of her lines. Her first premise stated that only scavengers, like crows and dogs, consume the food that another has already tasted. The subtext was a direct challenge to Akbar's status. She was already devoted to the king of Orcha. If Akbar forced her to stay, he would be acting as a scavenger of another man's love, an act beneath his dignity. By shifting the framing, she used the rigid social rules of the court to build a cage around the emperor's own desires. As her words echoed through the hall, the emperor realized he had been intellectually cornered. To seal her victory, Rai Praveen pivoted to how the emperor viewed himself. This scale shows the two forces at play. Akbar had spent decades cultivating a reputation as a noble and enlightened ruler. That historical legacy carried far more weight than any single person. If he kept her there by force after she had logically proven it was beneath his dignity, he would prove himself a petty tyrant. He would have to destroy his own self-image. She engineered a scenario where letting her go felt like a moral triumph for Akbar rather than a surrender to her logic. The court fell silent as Akbar considered his response. He was left speechless, unable to find a counterargument to her flawless framing. Rather than punishing her, he chose to honor the intellect that had cornered him. He granted her immense wealth and ensured her safe, dignified return to Orcha. Without a single drop of blood being shed, she had successfully shielded her entire kingdom from imperial wrath. Rai Praveen returned to these walls, not just as an artist, but as a survivor who had outmaneuvered the most powerful man in the world. This exchange reframes her historical identity. She was a master diplomat who used the precision of language to navigate a high-stakes geopolitical negotiation. In this specific confrontation, she proved that an intellectual flank could achieve a level of security that the Orcha garrison never could. By reshaping the emperor's own rules into a barrier, Rai Praveen turned a court performance into a foundational act of political survival that is still visible in the stones of Orcha today.